We want Origin to recognize it as exterior cut, then we want to click on this color swatch. That will automatically set the Shaper Origin to do an exterior cut, like so, to place the eyedropper on the line right here. Okay, and then you can see that we have gray stroke and no fill. In this case, the Origin will follow the path and cut it right on the path. Origin have a pocketing mode. So the pocketing mode would give you what? No fill, gray fill and no stroke. So in this case, the user would have to, you would go inside here manually and kind of route out all the stuff manually like that. Because there's no lines, there's no path the Shaper can follow. And hopefully you get everything clear. And then you switch to a smaller 2-bit. And then you're trying to go in here, okay? And then clean it out like so. Now this square is so simple that you can do it without changing your tool. If you have more intricate inlay, you will find out that you're gonna go and do this, and then come back, and then you switch again a couple times before you get it. The square is so simple, it has only 4 corners, and they look exactly the same. You can guess that the small tool is going to go in here. So how does ImagePaint help create the pocket when it comes to more complex design, such as this hummingbird? So let me go through the pocket creation first. We have here one artboard. The first thing we want to do is we want to round the corners first to the tool diameter that we plan to use. I'll select the path and go to the G-code panel. The important thing is we want to select profile wood veneer, and that will bring up profile outside. Now the rounding corner tool round profile outside differently from profile inside. If we select inside here, then it would not be rounding the corner according to what we want to do. We want to cut on the outside. That's what we want to do. So we want to make sure that happens. And then click on the corner rounding tool. Okay, so all the corners have been rounded. If we go in here, we can see they're rounded 2.02 inch. It rounded the adjacent path as well so that they fit together. Control Z to get back. If you follow up here, I have a step that we should follow. First, we round the corners. Then we simplify the path. Now, why do we need to simplify the path? The Origin would appreciate it if, in the end, there's a minimum number of points representing the path. That helps it to respond quicker. And so we need to simplify the path immediately after we round the corners. The round the corner tools add lots of points. And you can see a lot of points by selecting the direct selection tool. Then you can see all the points. If I zoom in, you see there's a lot of points here that can be removed without changing the shape significantly. So we go into Object Path, Simplify. I recommend always setting accuracy to 100%, and the corner point angle threshold is set to 160. And if you check this, retain my latest setting and directly open this dialog, next time when you simplify the path, all these settings will be there. Okay, so next thing is to create the path for the pocket. Now here we want the pocket to contain the bird itself and the flowers and the leaves. In that case, we need to take the background, hold down the Alt key, click and drag to copy, and then we release the compound path. Compound paths are paths with holes. In this case, we have the holes for the bird, and so it is the compound path. Once we release it, we have 2 paths that are not compound paths, a regular path. And that's a good way of creating an artboard that equal to this path. we select this path. This path represents our, for example, the lid of a wooden box. And so we need this to be an artboard. Artboard, convert to artboard. So now we have two artboard. This artboard and this artboard will be used for creating a pocket. All right, so we select the pocket path. And go to the G-code panel and select pocket wood veneer, making sure that we have the thickness specified for the material that the pocket would be on. So let's make it 0.75 inch. And the wood veneer preset, always select 0.02 inch as the Z-depth. And that's how we program it. If you click on this button, you can see that I have the Z-depth always equal to a constant of 0.02 inch. So every time we select this preset, the Z-depth will be 0.02 inch. That's why I name it pocket wood veneer, because our wood veneer normally would be 0.02 inch thickness. And of course, you make sure that the thickness is not stored in the preset itself. Okay, so make sure that we change that accordingly. And then we go down here, we'll be selecting 0.02 because that's the corners rounding tool that we used earlier. So that has to be in there. Then we want to select a 0.25 inch for roughing out the interior of the pocket. At this point, we have to select Shaper Origin and then create the toolpath. So there, if you zoom in, you can see the little dotted blue line. That's the outer of the pocket, the outer pocket. So currently it's going to be exactly on the path. And normally you want the pocket to be a few thousandths of an inch larger. In this case, we want to do it again. Let's change it, change the offset. So how do you change the offset to make it a little bit bigger? We go to open the preset config rule for that preset. Okay, so this preset currently has a preset value set to 0. A positive value will make the path bigger. In this case, we want to make it bigger. I normally use 0.007 or 7 thousandths of an inch bigger. So let's change to 0.07. Enter. It would be good to save it. So next time we open Pocket Wood Veneer preset, this 0.07 will be there. So if I save it, let's say next time I open it, yeah, it's going to be there for us. So now we're ready to recalculate the toolpath, making the pocket 7 thousandths of an inch bigger. So let's zoom in to verify that. The outer lines, which is the outline of the actual pocket that we'll be creating, is going to be 0.0007 bigger. We can verify that by using this measure tool. Click and drag. As you see the info saying it's around 0.007 inch. So we know that our offset works. And now all we have to do is to verify in the 3D view by clicking on this 3D view button. Okay. Usually, first thing I do is I just remove the toolpath and then kind of look, see if anything strange occur. Looks like everything is normal. Now I want to show how the toolpath actually created, which order the toolpath is currently being created. If you drag this handle, so it's the toolpath that normal CNC, not the origin, because the origin you can do whatever you want, the ordering of the tool bits, which tool is going to be used first. But for normal CNC, you can see that the 0.02 stopped first. I'm going to go all around and do a second pass, and then you start finishing the tight corners. All the tight corners will be routed out by the 0.02 inch. Finally, it picks up the 0.25 inch and start doing that. Now let's go to the Origin, create Origin post processor, and create the toolpath for it. You can do that by clicking on the Create G-code file. See, if it is not Shaper Origin post processor, then the normal G-code file will be created. But in this case, we selected Shaper Origin.svg. Clicking this will create the .svg file. So let's put it in the Hummingbird folder. That's where the SVG file will be stored. And I want to change it to Hummingbird Origin. Okay, so it's going to create a file named hummingbirdorigin.svg after we click this button. So if we go to that directory that has that .svg file, we go directly to that by clicking on that dir. Okay, .svg file is really a text file. So I'm going to open with Notepad. Now this .svg file was created by ImagePaint. It doesn't use Illustrator engine. It creates its own SVG file. If you look at it, you see that there's a rectangle. There's a path. So this is one path. These are called attributes. And fill mean there's no fill. Stroke color, this is RGB color. This is R and G and B. So R, red, is 255. Blue and green, so 0. And our stroke width is 0.5. And then one important thing that I added is data dash is a custom attribute. Other software, if it doesn't know what it is, it will ignore that. Currently, there's no software would understand what data dash toolname is, but I put it in there to show you that if Origin were to take a look at this file, it could take this and display the toolname. Whenever we select that path, it would display the tool name so we know which tool that path was intended for. Let's go back to Illustrator. If you click this, it will open the SVG file. Now, let's go back here. This is the color code that ImagePaint assigned to various tool diameter. Starting with 0.01 inch, 0.02 inch would be red. And as we created using 0.02 inch, you'll be seeing red and black, 0.25 inch. So let's go back to the .svg file. You see that all these paths are colored accordingly based on the tool diameter we selected before we create the toolpath. And we have a black color representing the 0.25 inch. For tool number 2, which is our NMU 0.02, we have an overlap or step over of 50%. What that means is the tool between the tool path is going to perform, it's going to finish that, and it's going to step over 50%. It's going to overlap 50%. Step over can be changed. If you step over less, let's say 40%, and you're overlapping more, you have a cleaner cut. The 0.25 tool also have a step over specification, and that affects the spacing between the tool path. So the spacing here depends on the step over value. So if the step over value is 40%, then the spacing will be less, and you have more overlap. Thus, you have a cleaner cut. So let's go back to the color coding from Shaper. The blue indicating a guide path. A guide path is a path with that color blue. So if the stroke is blue, the Origin will ignore it. It will not consider that as a toolpath. And so I use this blue color here to give you the exact same size of the original artboard. The size of this artboard is exactly equal to the size of this blue rectangle. And I assume that when you load this SVG into Origin, you will see this blue line. If you align blue line to that physical piece of wood, then the wood will be carved out as seen here. Okay, so that blue line is for registration. Now let's go next to creating profile cuts. So profile cut, first we want to paint this bird with the wood images that we scan into our computer. So I'll go to the image panel, and I'm going to set an image folder to tell the software where all the images that will organize. It's going to be organized into some directory. In this case, I wanted to organize all the images that I scan into a directory called wood images. So I select that, and you can see it's appear down here. So since this directory currently doesn't have any images in it, I've scanned a bunch of wood veneers into this folder, and I label it at the top left corner as shown. And the image name corresponds to the label. The image name corresponds to the label that we specify. Now we want to bring all these images into this directory, but we don't do it manually. We let the software do it. It has its own way of organizing the images in that folder called image folder. So we tell it that we want it to be all those images that we scan to be organized into that folder, and we set that image folder already. Now we tell it, okay, we're going to add those images that we scan from a folder that we put it in. It's not going to be this folder. It's going to be a folder that we create, and we store all these scanned images in it. In package 12, I have veneers that I've scanned and labeled and rename it. So I'm going to let the software know this is the folder. It's going to go and get all the images and then put them into this wood image folder that we specify and organize in such a way that it understands and be able to work with it. Okay, so select that folder, and then automatically bring all the images into what folder. It's going to bring it into this folder that we specify. Remember, this was empty. And then it brought in, and it could create a subfolder for each wood species that it saw and recognized, and then copy and move it inside that subfolder, individual subfolder. Remember, all these images doesn't get deleted. It just copy and move it into our wood image folder. I'm going to save that file. And if I open that file up again, it will automatically populate the image panel with the images that were in there. Okay, let's paint some images. I'm going to select these. The yellow. And the green. And for these, using maybe that. Okay, so we have, okay, the eye, and the feet, and the tip. Okay. So I think we have everything. Okay, just go over here and align it. Usually we want to turn off these dragging corners so we don't accidentally resize them. go to View, the hide bounding box, and I can use the Rotate tool. So now we are ready to create the toolpath for cutting these veneers out. In order to do that, we need another artboard for the CNC. And we can click this artboard tool. Let's put it over here. And then we can go up here and set the anchor point at this corner, top left corner, so it doesn't move. And then change the size to something like maybe 36 by 24 inches. And then exit by clicking on the black arrow tool to exit the artboard tool. All right. So when I select a master path, or I can select the clip up image, either way, as long as you select one of these, it will know that you plan to create toolpath to cut that piece of wood veneer. If we go to the decode panel, we're going to be selecting profile wood veneer. And make sure that our thickness is set to the wood veneer thickness, 0.2. Always good to have bottom of material selected for cutting wood veneers, so we can take care of wood veneers that are not exactly 0.02. It's still got cut all the way to the bottom. And for the origin, I think we want to be doing conventional. Okay. And what conventional does is it's going to create toolpath that goes counterclockwise. The origin is not a fixed CNC. If we use climb cut, which causes the toolpath to go in the clockwise direction, and that would be unstable for the origin. You have to hold it really, really tight. The climb cut tend to cut away from the wood. It can slip, so we need to have conventional selected before we create the profile toolpath. Ramp doesn't matter because for origin we don't really need ramping. So now we create the toolpath and place it on artboard 16. That's indicated here. So artboard 16 is what we want, and we click. Oops, we didn't select anything. We select that and create the toolpath. And it's place it down here. Now, as you notice, there's a little, it's all way off there. You don't want to move it here. You want to move it up here, and you want to make sure that you check Sync Toolpath is on. What Sync Toolpath does is, as soon as you move this, let's say I'm putting it down here, you see it's syncing with the toolpath. So it makes sure that whenever you change the location of the cutter path is going to reflect onto the toolpath. Now, if you don't select Sync Toolpath, yes, you can see if I move it down here, the toolpath remains stationary. It doesn't move along with it. In our case, we want to check it, okay? So we move it inside and make sure everything is inside. For the next veneer, we do the same thing. We just select the master path. It's easier to do. And create the toolpath. Okay, so I'm going to go here and create another toolpath for that piece of wood and continue on until we're done. I think we're all done. If we want to review the cutter image, we want to select the master path for that image. So if I select this master path, the image the cutting image corresponding to that master path will be revealed. So that's how we show and hide associated cutting image when we click the master path. You can also review everything by selecting this. What this does is it allows you to cut everything at the same time. So if I move it to a certain location, if I organize the origin workspace so that I can double-sided tape these at these locations. So the next thing is, of course, we're going to convert everything there into .svg file. Make sure we have Artboard 16 selected. The only thing we want to make sure is we want to have origin post-processor selected. It's going to be under Shaper Origin, right? Okay. That's the only two things we need to worry about is the artboard that we want to export and the post-processor that we want to use. And then click on this button. That's it. And we can view it by clicking on this label. So for each veneer, it created a guide path that Origin will ignore because the color was chosen accordingly. And we have all the cutter path, or the tool path color appropriately for that tool. So remember, red was 4.02. When you load this file, you want to make sure that you be setting Origin to perform on-path cutting. If we were to use gray color, then it would automatically switch to on-path cutting. So we'd be using, I guess, these blue rectangle to align to the veneer. So you have your physical veneer here. I assume you can see those physical veneer on the viewport of the origin, as well as seeing all these blue rectangle on its viewport.